Welcome everyone to this session on the United Faculty of Florida and the awesome work that is happening in that state. I'm so happy to be joined here by this amazing crew. We're going to kick it off with a round of introductions. So welcome folks. My name is Martha Grant. I am the Director of Product Strategy at Action Builder, but most excitingly, I've been able to work with this wonderful group of folks to help support the campaign down there in Florida and the use of Action Builder there. So I will kick it to you, Adela.
Thanks, Martha. Hi, everyone. My name is Adela Gadimi. I am an organizing specialist, service unit director with United Faculty of Florida, and I will pass it to Elena.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elena Scapicchio. I am a second-year PhD student at the University of South Florida. I'm the membership chair of the USF Graduate Assistants United, and I'm an organizing fellow with UFF or GAU. And I'll pass it to Kate.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Hull. I am a fourth-year PhD candidate at the University of South Florida. I am the president of the USF Graduate Assistants United and also an organizing fellow as of last spring. And I will kick it over to David.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Butcher. I'm a faculty member at Florida State University, co-chair of our chapter of United Faculty of Florida, and also an organizing fellow.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you all for being here. I want to kick it off with giving some background to the folks who are here with us today and the folks watching this recording on YouTube. So Adela, can you tell us a little bit about the background of what is happening in Florida right now?
Yes, absolutely. So if you haven't been closely following Florida politics in recent years, each year we've been seeing increasingly aggressive attacks, not only on public sector unions in the state, but also on higher education in general, and chipping away at academic freedom and what the rights on campus for free speech look like. So this past legislative session, we actually saw some of our more egregious bills that we were expecting actually pass and go through. So the main ones that I think are what has spun off into the need for us to have this campaign is one is called SB 256, Senate Bill 256 in the Florida Senate. And that is the union related bill that says now for all public sector unions to continue to exist, they have to have 60% density at each chapter, which means of everyone who's eligible to be a dues paying member, at least 60% of those people have to be, or when recertification comes around, they could face the risk of decertification. It also removed payroll dues deduction as an option for collecting dues for all public sector unions in the state of Florida, and that went into effect this past July. So we are a little over 2 months and about a week into not having payroll deduction. And so that's also created a sense of urgency for us to need to make sure that we're accommodating for that. It also did some things like requiring annual audits and some other new language that needs to be included. But those are the main provisions that are impacting our ability to exist and function. And then the other main bill that that probably was relevant to talk about here would be Senate Bill 266, which is what was attacking a lot of the higher education components that you've probably seen randomly in news by sound bites of things happening in Florida. It's the stuff that's trying to ban DEI, universities and colleges being able to spend money on DEI efforts and supporting DEI offices. It's censoring, critical race theory, trying to compel certain speech and limit what the roles of faculty can be, even in the hiring process of their colleagues on campus, and a bunch of other things. So again, there's a lot of attacks happening, not only on the academic freedom part of all of this, but also on the component of us being able to exist. So basically what we're doing is having a massive statewide organizing campaign that's, to try and make sure we can save our union. We have 34 chapters across the state of Florida, and we don't want to lose a single one of them. So, the approach is kind of twofold. With our existing members who were members prior to us losing payroll deduction, we need to get those folks switched over and signed on to our own internal e-dues system, which is our ability to collect dues directly from our members to us. And then with new members, we still need to now recruit them and educate them on that process and get them to also sign up. So getting to work with Martha, particularly at a time like this, has been such a lifesaver for us. But that's a little bit of just kind of the groundwork of how we ended up here. That kind of answers your question, Martha.
Totally, completely. One of the things that I love about these sessions is that we get that perspective on not only like, okay, this is how different our circumstances from maybe some of the other states, some of the other places where folks are organizing in higher ed, but also we get to hear the individual stories of like, what is it that really like tipped the needle for you and said, oh, I need to join the union. I need to get more involved in the union. I need to participate more. Kate, would you kick us off and tell us how did you end up getting involved in the campaign? What drew you in? And a little bit about your story about getting involved in organizing generally. And then if you just want to pass it to one of your fellow amazing organizers, that would be great.
Sure. Well, organizing is kind of in my blood. My dad was a labor leader, so I grew up on the picket line, but I never really thought about it as like my sort of role in life until I became a graduate student and realized that, you know, I wasn't getting offer letters in a timely manner and wasn't like sure if I was going to have an assistantship. And being an older student, I have a family, I have, you know, children to support. And so like not having the awareness or the recognition of what was going to be happening from semester to semester was a difficult pill for me to swallow. And so I, at first, you know, tried to go different routes. I went in front of the board of trustees. I went a lot of different ways. And then I said, wait, we've got a union here. Let me reach out to them. And when I saw that the union was the one organization that was actually helping me and moving my complaints forward, I said, I need to get a little bit more active in there. And so I've just become more and more active within the union. Like I said, I'm now the president and just building a great staff. And I think really, you know, the fact that even though I came up growing up, like knowing about unions and knowing about the labor force, still for me to not recognize like, oh, that's the first place I should have gone. And I think there's so many of our graduate assistants that just don't recognize like the power of the union. So that's basically my sort of goal, is to spread that word and let them know that the union is the first place that they should be going. So I will pass it over to Elena.
Yeah, so I have been at USF for both my master's and now my PhD. And so I did my master's during COVID, but I became a member of GAU as soon as I joined, mostly because, so I'm a historian, right? I'm in a history department, and I know the labor history of the United States and how basically everything we have is because of hard labor, you know, that was one. And so it's like, you know, kind of putting your money where your mouth is, right? Like now I have the opportunity to join a union and I was going to do that. But during COVID, our chapter kind of fell into a bit of a slump, as I'm sure a lot of people experienced, right? Not being able to get together and do in-person organizing. But then when I started my PhD, I went to the first social of the semester, and I just really got to know some of the people that were on the e-board, and there was going to be a lot of people graduating, right? That's a common problem with GAUs is the turnover rate. And so with all these laws and things happening in Florida, I often felt overwhelmed, like, what can I do? And this has been my outlet to like feel like I'm actively doing something to not only like ease my own anxieties about what's going on, but to know that I'm helping like my fellow students, right, earn the things that we deserve. So yeah, I just started getting as involved as possible, and it's been really amazing to watch this community be built. Super valuable. So yeah, David.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of what other folks are saying. I mean, I've always had a strong conviction that, you know, working people need power and need institutions they can use to build that power. And when I was a grad student, a postdoc, when I was working before I started graduate school, I never really had the opportunity to be in a union, but always wanted to be. So basically, as soon as I became a faculty member, I went and joined UFF. And actually, I got a recruiting call from a UFF member who encouraged me to join. And that was all I needed, just a little bit of a nudge. I started attending bargaining sessions and EC meetings, executive council meetings. And the more I attended, the more I realized this is something I really want to be involved with. And I only became co-chair of the membership committee this year because given the current legislative catastrophe, I realized people need to step up, they need to get involved. And I think I have the kind of skills that could potentially be useful here. So I just put myself forward. I felt compelled. I had to. I think that's true of a lot of us.
That is absolutely fantastic. I love to hear this. I also, Kate, I love your journey to becoming union president. My 6-year-old turned to me very seriously the other day and he said, "Mom, could I be a union president someday?" I was like, "Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yes." So I want to ask the next question a little bit more about the campaign and the way that the campaign has been working. So one of our goals for folks who are attending this session, who are watching this video, is to take away some of like the strategies, the tactics, what is working and what has really been helpful for getting more folks in the union, more folks deeply involved in the union. So whoever wants to jump in and share something that's been working really effectively on your campus, we'd love to hear it. And I love your story, David, about like how attending, just showing up to those meetings has been really helpful for deepening your leadership. What has it been like to get folks to show up? What has been working really well there?
Um, well, getting folks to show up. I mean, I know this gets repeated a lot, but making those kinds of personal one-on-one connections is really, really important. We really try to act through people in the faculty's own department because it's much, much easier for them to make a connection than it is for one of us who's an outsider. You know, if I go to, sociology or art history, another department that is has nothing to do with my work. I'm a scientist. They don't know me. We don't share anything about our work necessarily. And so it can be a little bit difficult to make a connection. But if they have a steward or at least an activist member in their department, they can kind of make that connection and start the ball rolling.
Who wants to jump in next?
I was going to say, I definitely agree about the personal connection, but I think, other things that have been really helpful is when you see an issue that is facing multiple people, grabbing onto that issue and talking about that, and not just talking about, oh yeah, that really sucks, but like, here's what we can do. Here's some steps that we can take, and here's some steps that we've taken in the past, and how can we get you more involved in helping us to take those steps.
Yeah, I agree, Kate. Like finding a real bread and butter issue that resonates with a lot of people. For graduate students, that tends to be healthcare. And that's something that, you can even kind of leverage like dues, right? Like, so you're paying these dues, and yeah, that may seem like a lot for a graduate student, but it's less than you would pay for, healthcare on your own. So just kind of putting like something like that at the forefront. But for me, I really think um, just showing people what having a community is like, right? So we just did our first big social of the semester, and we told everybody, come out, you're going to get a drink, you're going to get some food, and we rented out a place and we packed it. And like to see all these graduate students mixing and mingling and like getting to know one another from different departments, I think it's really just shows like there's power in being a collective.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. One of the things I want to say to maybe like move back a step to is you mentioned healthcare. And I think a lot of folks don't understand truly like the working conditions of graduate assistants and faculty members. And does one of you want to jump in and say, like, this is where we're at and this is where we want to go?
Well, regarding faculty, at least, uh, Adela, you might have some more concrete information in mind about this, but Florida faculty in general are some of the lowest paid in the nation, to my knowledge. I don't know the exact ranking, but that's something that's, well, obviously felt by everyone, right? Dollars and cents. At a time, especially when cost of living is increasing in Florida. I mean, if you're a homeowner, your home insurance has gone up by an incredible amount this year. If you're a renter like me, your rent goes up every year. And so, faculty share those same concerns as all other working people. We would like to get to a point where, we at the very least have parity with other states in the nation in terms of at least average faculty pay or pay that's commensurate with the cost of living that we have to deal with.
Awesome. And how about on the graduate assistant side? What are some of those bread and butter issues?
Well, definitely the health insurance, like Elena was
Mhm.
talking about, and that's been a real fiasco at the start of this semester. We just changed both health insurance providers and the insurance management company. So a lot of students don't know how to sign up, don't know what they'll be paying, weren't informed that their providers were changing. So those GAs that have persistent health issues were sort of blindsided with that. So that's been a big issue for us just coming into the semester, when there's a lot of things that we're just trying to figure out classes and figure out who we're teaching and what we're teaching. And it's something that really should have been very easy and accessible for our GAs, and it has not been. So that's been it's been a rallying call for a lot of our GAs, which has been nice for us, but it's a really sad situation for our GAs to have to deal with coming in.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Adela.
I was going to add that, we have 4 unionized graduate assistant United chapters in Florida, and each their issues are the same, but the way they manifest can be very different. So, like Kate was mentioning what some of those conditions look like on her campus, and we have at some of our other GA campuses, they faced the unilateral removal of dependent coverage with no notice and had no idea that was happening from one year to the next. And that was something that, the union had to get very involved in trying to fight and reverse. But for a year, that was the case of how the GAs were living after having it and having lost it for a year. And for families, especially, that's a big deal. They've also seen across the board a big change in just how much of their prescriptions are covered, specialist doctors. And when you're already talking about your take-home pay after fees and everything else, in most cases leaving you at or below the federal poverty line, seeing an influx and a giant change in what those personal costs are, they create like a very large impact for our graduate assistants.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I love the talk about sort of like how we're using those moments, you're using those moments to create solidarity. Can you talk a little bit about what that has looked like to have those conversations, maybe to track those conversations, to build up those leaders in those different departments, to be able to really, when these situations happen, get the word out that like, hey, your union is taking a stand here, and this is how you can get involved.
Yeah, so over the summer, we prepped a lot for orientation. Like that was going to be our big push. And we went to, I mean, a majority of departmental orientations to just get the word out, right? Like let people, incoming students, know that there is a union. Here's the kind of things that we do. We printed out a lot of materials. And in terms of like having conversations, I think just trying to set up that steward structure, like that was something we were lacking in the beginning of the semester, and we're already like seeing a lot of progress there. And again, just giving people the opportunity to get involved. A lot of people feel this way, like overwhelmed, they want to be able to do something. And so when you give them the opportunity, like they're going to jump in. And yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, and earlier Elena had talked about the social that we had. So one of the things that we can do is we have sign-in sheets for all of those socials, and then I can go in and say like this person attended in Action Builder. I can say this person attended a social, and then we can look and see this person's attended like 4 of our socials or 4 of our events in the last 6 months. Like, are we reaching out to them to say like, do you want to become more of an activist here? Do you want to become a department steward? Would you like to increase your role here? Because you obviously enjoy, coming and you have things to say. So being able to track that, I think is really important. And it's a big benefit of having an organizing platform instead of just, random sign-in sheets that we were just keeping in filing cabinets.
Yeah, we use Action Builder in a similar capacity, because thanks to the note system, we can go back and see all the interactions we had with someone. And there are plenty of cases where I'll look back and see, oh, we contacted them in January and March and in April. And then eventually they joined, and then eventually they became a steward. So you can kind of see the history of the interactions with them, which is very helpful.
Awesome. I do want to throw out an Action Builder specific question. And David kind of answered it a little bit already, but I think it would be fantastic if you shared, like, what is your favorite Action Builder feature? Like, what is something that has been made so much easier, especially compared to maybe what you were using before?
I personally love being able to flag people for follow-ups and then to be able to assign that to specific people, right? Because we have a group Discord, it's going off 50,000 times a day. But if I talk to someone who needs to talk to our grievance chair, I can just go in there, like put in a whole note and assign it to Zach, and then he sees it and he's like, great, saw it in Action Builder. So that for me has been like amazing. So we can all have one less text message, one less email throughout the day.
I really like having the top lines. I think it is the information right at the available at the top of their page. Usually when we're doing visits, we're canvassing a specific department, but we want to know, is this a person on a 9-month or a 12-month contract? Is this a tenure track or a non-tenure track faculty member? And it's all right there, and we can kind of be prepared for the conversation we're about to have.
I think my favorite is probably the density report, because we can look and see what departments are really union heavy, like we have a large density in there, and which ones do we really need to be focusing on as far as getting that membership up within that specific department.
Adela, do you want to jump in on this one?
I feel like Martha has heard me just like cheering from the rooftops about Action Builder since the first meeting when I got introduced to it and realized we were going to use it, because after being an organizer for so long, I can't pick just one feature, to be honest, because being able to take people out of using spreadsheets or having to use like Google Docs that always, one person makes an edit and it ruins everything. The fact that you can control on a team who has access to what, that you can assign things to folks, that we can so easily track over time what people's engagement has been. I mean, literally, when I saw this, especially knowing this crisis was coming, I was like, this could not have come at a better time for us statewide, with all of the chapters that we work with and how all of them are set up a bit differently. The fact that we can unify one organizing system and structure for us to use and be able to train everyone on like, this is how it's done moving forward, has been a total complete game changer for UFF overall. And so I'm very grateful for the tool overall.
Thank you all so much.
David. Sorry, one more quick thing. The filtering results that you can do is very, very handy. If I want, tenure track faculty on 12-month contracts in a specific department who are not members, I can put all those filters together and get those exact people.
I love it. I love it so much. And I will say, I so appreciate you sharing what these features have meant for you all on this campaign. As you all know, we really built Action Builder as former organizers ourselves, and through a cooperative development process that has really meant that like this is really tailor-made for our movement and for these organizing campaigns to build and scale. And you all are a bright light of how this tool can be used, and used in a really broad way across a distributed organizing effort in a really, really crisis moment, in a critical moment for your union. I love that you mentioned Discord, Elena. I would love to hear more about all the other tools that you are using to really keep this campaign moving and keep that momentum going strong. Do you want to talk a little bit more about Discord, and if anybody else wants to talk about other tools that you are using as well, and how technology is really baked into the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so Discord was super helpful. We had one from our previous president, but was kind of defunct. So we finally like got our own channel. And it's amazing because you could just have like 6 different chats happening all in one location. It allows us to really like, we are on it every single day, talking to one another, updating one another about what's going on. And it's just been super useful. And something I had thought about earlier too, is I really like using Action Builder in tandem with Hustle. So when we're having a social and I send out mass hustle texts and people are responding to me, sometimes they're just saying, yes, I'm coming to the social, but other times they'll ask questions, they'll say something about e-dues. And so I always like, I'm sitting by the computer ready to like type those things into Action Builder. So it's yeah, the technology aspect. What really sticks with me, Martha, is the story you told at Summit about being in like an airplane hangar with thousands of sticky notes, like trying to see every person who you were trying to organize. Like that's insane. As a young organizer, I can't even imagine. So I'm like very grateful for these technologies because yeah, like when we were first getting off the ground, like Adele said, like using Google Docs, using Excel, having 60,000 different spreadsheets, it's really we've been able to streamline and stop duplicating work or stop spending hours on things that are not actually going to push the campaign forward. So it's been really useful in that way.
Awesome. Are there other technologies that either of you want to highlight, David, Kate?
It's a little bit complicated for us because faculty cover such a broad variety of disciplines and kind of age ranges that there's really no consistent tool or other technology or platform that we found. We try to kind of have a presence on social media of various kinds, but really email is the only thing that unites us. And even then, people are not very good at responding to those. Not to gripe too much, but it's tricky. I wish everyone was on Discord. It would make things easy.
That's one of those challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Discord has definitely been a game changer as far as the communication between the executive board members and also like our UFF organizing fellows that jump in as well. And it's just a great place where we can like share resources as well as have those little chats. But we've also tried to up our social media game because we did not have a presence. Like I tried to start that like back in the spring, but then we got a social media like person on our board and she is amazing. So she helps to spread that word. And you can do that in a lot of different ways through stories or carousels or all of that. So it's just a great way to reach people that maybe aren't checking the emails. We do use MailChimp as well. So we do like I send out weekly things, but looking at that, we get maybe 30 to 40% that open. So I do like the fact that MailChimp can track, who's opening and who's engaging. That's helpful for me. But again, like email's really not our best friend.
Yeah, I have one last question before we open it up for Q&A. Well, maybe two more questions. So the second to last question, and we're kind of like getting into that with like the email and the social media. But because we have folks watching this and who are trying to figure out like what are things that I can take away and apply in my own campaign, something that can be really helpful is there something that you're like, oh, this is going to like build so much solidarity, this type of event or this type of outreach, and then you wound up finding that like actually that was like you were expending too much time for too little return. Is there anything that you've tried and like maybe maybe folks, let's not do that?
We had a social over the summer that was intended for specialized or non-tenure track faculty. We sent out, I think, something like 700 or 800 invitations, mailed invitations, not like an email, which required a considerable amount of volunteer effort. And the only people who showed up were kind of the usual suspects, people who are already union activists. So we think a lot of the addresses were just kind of outdated, or maybe the invitations just didn't really move the needle. Something about having events during the summer is difficult because a lot of people are traveling or just otherwise checked out. So that was probably not a good use of our time, but we learned from it and we're doing better from now on with our socials.
Yeah, I would say just knowing your audience. It's difficult and it takes some time to get in the groove. But for example, like we're finding doing socials very close to campus where it's like super easy for people to carpool or to like even walk over, rather than doing something in St. Pete where we do have another campus on St. Pete, but we've been having a hard time like organizing that area. And so then when we did a social over there, like no one from the St. Pete campus came and one person from Tampa campus came. So it was like, you have to just do what's accessible for your people. And it takes a little while to get in that groove.
Yeah, we had a similar event for a satellite campus, and we're only able to get like a handful of people to show up. It's just it can be really hard to get people to come to things, even if you're trying to make phone calls and email them and send.
Oh, you went on mute, David.
Oh, sorry. You have to be careful with the timing, and you have to make it desirable for them to come. And we also have the opposite problem, because sometimes if we do things close to campus, maybe not a lot of people will come because a lot of the faculty live like out in the suburbs. So we try to have things out there sometimes. But picking locations is tough.
Location picking, I think, is one of the biggest challenges that I've heard consistently. And honestly, it's one of what I've heard to be like the most effective uses of our map view. So pulling up the map view from the wall chart, you can see where everybody lives and where everybody works. And trying to pick a location that is accessible for folks. But it is so hard to balance those competing needs and to reach people across diverse locations. That's something I've heard again and again and again. My last question for you all before we dig into the Q&A, and feel free to start dropping questions into the chat, folks, is what, you've got this big campaign going. The deadline is approaching. Is there anything that other folks from other unions can do to show their support and their solidarity with the campaign that is happening? Is there a page that they should follow? Is there an email newsletter they should subscribe to? Is there anything that folks across the country, US and Canada actually, could do to help support you in this incredible fight?
I mean, I wish I had something handy, but we're not at the point of trying to reach out for, I think, national help to do like a letter writing campaign or something. We have a big membership blitz coming up next week, which Action Builder is going to be very helpful for. And we're hoping that'll help push us close to the threshold we want to get over. But yeah, we do need to start thinking more about how to get other people involved. For now, if you want to follow United Faculty of Florida, Florida State University, I think we're on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, not on Twitter because I don't need to explain that, and a couple other social media. So if you can find us, please follow us. And many other chapters have pages as well, and they post regularly.
Yeah, we also have, we have statewide pages for that. We put updates on a regular basis on our website as well. So at times we have, and I can look and send you some of them, some links for people to, sign on in solidarity with us in some of these efforts. If you ever find yourself wanting to have extended time here, let us know, because we could definitely use extra help on any one of our campuses on any given day. So, otherwise we're kind of in the thick of it right now. But yes, we appreciate everyone wanting to support and want to find more ways to have you feel a part of it with us.
Beautiful. Does anybody have any questions? You can hit the Q&A button to type them in there. You could also raise your hand and we could figure out how to unmute you as well, if you would like, rather to speak your question. Awesome. We've got a question here. In MapView, there are 2 pins, one for work and one for home. And can they be filtered? Yes, they can. So you can filter to the different entity types. You can also search for everybody who works for a particular location and pull up both their work site as well as their home and see those on the map as well. That is a great question. Do any of you use the MapView currently?
Unfortunately, no. There are so many different work locations that it's a little bit hard to enter them all. We do want to start entering that data.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Other questions that folks have? Oh, here we've got a one from Stacy. So I am from UAW Local 2335, and they're now the chairman of the Education Committee. Awesome. We have launched our union website using the AFL-CIO website builder, trying to get people more interested in learning about the union. What would you all suggest they use or do to start moving forward? Their union does not use Action Builder at this time, at least as far as they know. and they're loving all this information. So they've got a website. They want to get the word out about the union. What would you all recommend? One note, Stacy, is that UAW, because you all are affiliated with the AFL-CIO, like UFF, get access to Action Builder for free as well. So that's something that you can learn more about. And I'll type in the email that you can send at the AFL-CIO to get that free access and to get hooked up with the folks at UAW who can get that to you as well. But who wants to take it away? What would you recommend as first steps for Stacy?
I would say if you're really starting from scratch, Stacey, you want to make sure that you can humanize like what's going on with your leadership and with the conditions at your work sites. So I would always start with, introduction of who are officers and what does that actually mean. So maybe even doing like video, quick 60-second clips of them, or doing a YouTube that you can link to your website, just so that people can start putting a face to the names, or understanding that the union is literally made up of our own workers and our colleagues. So I try as much as possible to make sure that folks stop othering their own union. It's our union, it's us. There's not some amorphous giant entity army of people doing this. It's literally you and I and everyone else that's here doing it. So anything you can do to humanize that, I think, makes a big difference in folks starting to change the narratives they might have in their mind about it. And then also even sometimes, overviewing like what are some of the main activities you're doing? What have been some of the main wins you've had in recent contract negotiations? What have been some of the main issues you're addressing? And what is some of the fun you're having? Because it doesn't also need to always be only about that. We want to be able to create community amongst what we're doing as well. And so that's another way that you want to try and balance that, and let folks know ways they can also engage with you in other ways outside of just maybe like doing bargaining or union specific activities.
I know the UAW organization has produced some great promotional materials with President Sean Fain. So, I mean, you could either repost that or make something patterned on that. You've probably already seen it.
Oh, great. I love the union solidarity, cross union solidarity. We all have so much to learn from each other. I think that we should probably wrap it up. We've got another session coming up in just a few minutes. Any closing thoughts? Let's do a quick round, and I'll kick it to you to start, Kate.
Yeah, I would just say, one thing that I have found in the last few months, as we're really struggling with all of the politics that's going on in our state, is trying to strike a balance between like this real sense of urgency of why it's so important to join the union, with like not all of the doom and gloom. So really trying to, like, you were talking about the community, Elena mentioned that before as well, like talk about the union as, yes, we are, we're here to support your legal rights, but also like we are one collective, we are a community, and all of these horrible things that are happening, we can make a difference if we're working together.
I just want to mention that, again, underscore the point that Action Builder is a great tool for coordinating the efforts of multiple organizers in multiple places, some of whom may be doing phone calls, some of whom are doing in-person canvassing over a long period of time. Because rather than having all these distributed, siloed kind of pieces of information that single organizers might have, it puts everything in one place where it can be accessed by everyone. It's a simple thing, but very, very effective.
Yeah, I would just say, this work can be deeply, deeply challenging, but it is also deeply, deeply rewarding. Getting to know so many different kinds of people, meeting people from across the state, across the country. And I would just say building a foundation of a solid team who has each other's backs, who can pick up the slack when you're kind of feeling overwhelmed. I think that's the most important thing. And just, remember to keep pushing through. We're going to win the fight in the long haul.
Oh, this makes me so excited to hear all of this. But yes, I think too, note that like I know we have a lot of people we work with that maybe are a little bit hesitant about learning new technology or feeling like, turned away because of that. It is going to be like a 100-fold return on the investment of time and helping people get through those hurdles to be using this platform. Because again, as someone who's been organizing a long time, there's no simpler way to do it. And as we're working harder, we need to make sure we're also working smarter. And this is really a way that we can do that and make sure, especially if you are also facing a crisis campaign with an impending deadline, it's really like never a better time than now to be able to try and streamline the efforts that that we're trying to use, and that we're bringing in a lot more organizers to the work as well. So just be unapologetically loud about those things that matter as we're doing all of this.
I love this so much. Thank you all so much for your time. I so appreciate everything that you're doing. And I'm so glad that I get the chance to do a little bit of work with you all. It's been such a pleasure. And thanks to everybody who's attended this session. The next one is coming up in just a few minutes. So you can click on the link to join that, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.